You're fired. Victoria Ashford hurled the employee file across her desk. Papers scattered. Daniel Carter didn't move. Pick it up, she said. He didn't. I said pick it up. Daniel looked at the papers on the floor. Then he looked at her. The billionaire, the CEO, the woman who'd just destroyed his life with 2 words. No. Victoria's eyes narrowed. No one had ever said no to her. Not once. Not ever. But what Daniel said next made her freeze completely. Made her forget the test. Made her forget everything she thought she knew about power. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. What did you just say to me? Victoria's voice was ice. She stood behind her desk on the 55th floor of Ashford Tower, looking down at the front desk clerk who made $12 an hour. Daniel Carter met her eyes. I said no, Miss Ashford. Do you understand what's happening here? I just fired you. I heard you. Then why are you still sitting there? Daniel took a breath. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. Because before I leave, I need to ask you something. Victoria crossed her arms. You're in no position to ask me anything. Please. The word cracked slightly. Just one thing. Something in his tone made her pause. She'd done this test 11 times before. She'd seen begging. She'd seen rage. She'd seen men twice Daniel's size break down crying. She'd never heard someone say please like that. What? She snapped. Daniel looked down at his hands, then back up at her. My daughter is 7 years old. Her name is Lily. She thinks I'm a hero because I go to work every day and come home every night. His voice dropped. She doesn't know we're 3 months behind on rent. She doesn't know I work double shifts just to keep the lights on. She doesn't know her daddy is barely holding it together. Victoria said nothing. If you're firing me, that's your right. I can't stop you. Daniel's jaw tightened. But please don't tell my daughter. Let her believe I'm still trying. Let her believe her daddy didn't fail. The room went silent. Victoria stared at him. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. In 12 tests, no one had ever answered like this. No one had thought about anyone but themselves. It's a test. The words came out before she could stop them. Daniel blinked. What? You're not actually fired. Victoria walked to the window, putting distance between them. I test employees to see how they react under pressure. It reveals character. Silence. Then Daniel laughed. Not a happy laugh. A broken one. A test. He shook his head slowly. You made me believe I just lost everything. You made me think about how I was going to explain to my 7-year-old daughter why we have to move again. And it was a test. It's an effective evaluation method. Daniel stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. That's not effective, Miss Ashford. That's cruel. It's business. No. Daniel's voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. Business is numbers and spreadsheets. This, he gestured between them, this is something else. This is someone who's forgotten what it feels like to be human. Victoria turned to face him. Excuse me. You heard me? They stared at each other. The billionaire and the clerk. The woman who had everything and the man who had almost nothing. Daniel walked toward the door. Mr. Carter. He stopped but didn't turn around. This evaluation will go in your file. A positive evaluation. Daniel laughed again. That same broken sound. Keep it. He opened the door. I could promote you, Victoria said. Right now. Double your salary. Daniel finally turned. The look in his eyes made her take a step back. You think that's what this is about, money? Everything is about money. No, Miss Ashford. Some things are about dignity, and you just took mine. He paused at the door. I hope your test was worth it. I hope you found what you were looking for. The door closed. Victoria stood alone in her corner office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows and silence. Her hands were shaking. That had never happened before. Daniel made it to the elevator before his legs gave out. He slammed his palm against the wall and bent over, breathing hard. The doors closed. The elevator began its descent. Damn it! He pressed both hands against his face. A test. She'd put him through hell for a test. The elevator stopped at the 30th floor. A woman in a business suit stepped in, took one look at Daniel, and moved to the opposite corner. He didn't care. All he could think about was Lily. The moment Victoria had said, "You're fired," his mind had gone straight to his daughter. How was he going to tell her? How was he going to explain that they'd have to leave their apartment, that he'd failed 3 years? 3 years of working double shifts. 3 years of sleeping 4 hours a night. 3 years of missing school plays and birthday parties and bedtime stories because he was always working. And this woman, this billionaire in her tower, had made him feel like it was all for nothing. The elevator reached the lobby. Daniel straightened his tie, Marcus's tie borrowed this morning, and walked back to the front desk. Marcus looked up from the computer. "Yo, D, how'd it go?" "Fine." "You don't look fine. You look like someone died." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Drop it, Marcus." "Whoa, okay." Marcus raised his hands. "Just asking." Daniel took his position behind the desk and stared at the computer screen. His hands were still shaking. A guest approached older woman, expensive jewelry, impatient expression. "I've been waiting 15 minutes for someone to call me a car." "I apologize, ma'am. Let me take care of that right now." "Your service here is terrible. Absolutely terrible. I'm going to speak to management." Daniel's hands curled into fists under the desk. "Keep it together. Keep it together. Keep it together." "I understand your frustration, ma'am. Your car will be here in 5 minutes." The woman huffed and walked away. Marcus leaned over. "You sure you're okay?" "I'm fine." "Do you look like you're about to punch something?" Daniel closed his eyes, counted to 10, opened them. "I said I'm fine." At 4 o'clock, Daniel clocked out and ran to the train station. He'd missed the 3:45 express. The next train was delayed. He stood on the platform, checking his phone every 30 seconds, watching the minutes tick by. 4:15, 4:20, 4:25. The school closed at 4:30. Come on, come on, come on. The train finally arrived at 4:22. Daniel shoved through the doors before they fully opened and grabbed a pole, his heart pounding. 8 stops to Lily's school. He made it at 4:34. The school was almost empty. A teacher stood at the front steps holding Lily's hand. When she saw Daniel running toward them, her expression shifted from relief to disapproval. "Mr. Carter, this is the 3rd time this month." "I know. I'm sorry. The train..." "We've discussed this. Pickup is at 4:30. "I know." Daniel crouched down and opened his arms. Lily ran into them. "I'm sorry. It won't happen again." The teacher's expression softened slightly. "She was worried about you." Daniel looked at his daughter. Her dark braids were messy. Her backpack was almost as big as she was. Her eyes, Sarah's eyes, were searching his face. "Daddy, are you okay?" "I'm perfect, baby girl." "You look sad." "I'm not sad. I'm happy. I'm always happy when I see you." Lily studied him for a moment. Then she smiled. "Can we get ice cream?" Daniel thought about the $18 in his checking account. Rent was due in 6 days. "Sure, baby. Let's get ice cream." They walked to the shop on the corner. Lily got chocolate chip. Daniel got nothing. "Daddy, why aren't you eating?" "I'm not hungry." "But ice cream is the best. Mommy always said ice cream makes everything better." Daniel felt his chest tighten. Mommy was right. Lily licked her cone, leaving chocolate on her nose. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Are you going to leave me like Mommy did?" Daniel's throat closed. He set down his phone and looked at his daughter. "What? No, Lily, no. I'm never going to leave you. Promise." "I promise." Cross my heart." Lily nodded, satisfied. She went back to her ice cream. Daniel watched her and thought about Sarah. 3 years ago, she'd been alive. 3 years ago, she'd been texting him about picking up milk. 3 years ago, he'd had a wife and a home and a future. Then the police showed up at his door. Hit and run. Lakeshore Drive. She'd died on impact. The driver was never found. After the funeral, Daniel had fallen apart. He'd stopped going to work, stopped paying bills, stopped eating. He'd sit on the couch for hours staring at nothing while 4-year-old Lily watched cartoons beside him. It was Lily who'd saved him. One night she'd crawled into his lap. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Are you going to leave me too?" That question had broken something inside him. Broken it and rebuilt it at the same time. "No, baby. Never. I'm never going to leave you." He'd kept that promise. Through double shifts and sleepless nights, through overdue bills and final notices, through everything he'd kept that promise. And today, Victoria Ashford had almost made him break it. That night, after Lily was asleep, Daniel sat at the kitchen table and stared at the stack of bills. Electric $147 overdue, gas $89 final notice, rent $1,400 due in 6 days. His checking account balance $18.43. His next paycheck $600 after taxes. The math didn't work. It never worked. Daniel put his head in his hands. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Heard the CEO called you in. Everything cool?" Daniel typed back. "Yeah, fine." "What did she want?" Daniel stared at the screen. What did she want? She wanted to play God. She wanted to see him break. She wanted to prove that everyone has a price. "Just a routine evaluation," he typed. "Must be nice. I've been here 5 years and never even seen her. Trust me, you're not missing anything." Daniel set down his phone and looked at the bills again. He thought about Victoria Ashford. Her corner office. Her designer suit. Her ice blue eyes that looked at him like he was nothing. "I could promote you," she'd said. "Double your salary." Double his salary would mean $24 an hour. $48,000 a year. Enough to pay off the bills. Enough to move to a better apartment. Enough to stop working double shifts. Enough to actually be there for Lily. But he'd walked away. Was that stupid? Was that pride? Was that just a broke man pretending he had something to prove? Daniel looked at Lily's bedroom door. Inside, she was sleeping peacefully, dreaming about ice cream and school plays and cartoons. She didn't know they were 3 months behind on rent. She didn't know the electric company was threatening to shut off the power. She didn't know her daddy was barely holding it together. "Please don't tell my daughter." That's what he'd said to Victoria, and he'd meant it. Lily believed in him. She thought he was a hero. That belief was the only thing keeping him going. If he'd accepted Victoria's promotion, if he'd taken her money after she'd humiliated him, what would that make him? What would that teach? Lily. Daniel picked up the electric bill and stared at it. $147. He could ask Mrs. Chen for help. No. She was on a fixed income, barely making ends meet herself. He could pick up extra shifts. But the hotel was already fully staffed. No overtime available. He could... His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He answered. "Hello. Mr. Carter, this is Victoria Ashford's office." Daniel's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "Miss Ashford would like to schedule a follow-up meeting with you." "Tell Miss Ashford I'm not interested." "Mr. Carter, this is regarding a potential promotion." I said, "I'm not interested." He hung up. The phone buzzed again immediately. Same number. He declined the call. It buzzed again. And again. On the 5th call, he turned off his phone and threw it in a drawer. 55 floors above the city, Victoria Ashford slammed her phone down. "He hung up on me." Her assistant Rachel stood in the doorway. Should I try again? No. Victoria stood and walked to the window. He hung up on me. No one hangs up on me. Miss Ashford, if I may. You may not. Rachel nodded and retreated. Victoria stared at her reflection in the glass. Behind her, the office was perfectly arranged. Leather furniture, modern art, a desk that cost more than most people's cars. Everything in its place. Everything under control. Except Daniel Carter. She'd offered him a promotion. She'd offered him double his salary. She'd offered him everything he'd ever wanted. And he'd said no. Why? Victoria walked to her desk and picked up his file. She'd read it 4 times already. She knew every detail. Hired 3 years ago. Perfect attendance. No complaints. Consistently positive reviews. Wife deceased car accident. Single father. Daughter age 7. She flipped to his photo. A simple headshot, slightly blurry. He wasn't smiling. He looked tired. But there was something in his eyes. Something she couldn't name. Dignity. That's what it was. Even in a cheap suit and a borrowed tie, Daniel Carter had more dignity than anyone she'd ever met. Miss Ashford? Victoria looked up. Rachel was back. Your father is on line 1. Victoria's stomach dropped. Tell him I'm in a meeting. He says it's urgent. Of course it was urgent. Everything with Marcus Ashford was urgent. Victoria picked up the phone. Father? Victoria. His voice was gravel and steel. I heard you're running your little tests again. They're not little. They're effective. They're a waste of time. I taught you better than that. You taught me to evaluate character. I taught you to identify weakness. There's a difference. He paused. Fire the ones who beg. Promote the ones who fight back. That's the formula. What about the ones who do neither? Then they're useless. Get rid of them. Victoria thought about Daniel. He hadn't begged. He hadn't fought back. He just stood there, with dignity. What if they have something else? She asked. Like what? I don't know. Integrity. Character. Her father laughed. It was not a warm sound. Integrity doesn't close deals, Victoria. Character doesn't increase shareholder value. You want to succeed, you need people who are hungry, people who will do anything to win. And if they won't, then they're obstacles. Remove them. Victoria closed her eyes. Yes, Father. The board meeting is next week. I expect a full report on Q4 projections. Don't disappoint me. The line went dead. Victoria set down the phone and looked at Daniel's file again. Her father's voice echoed in her head. Remove them. But she couldn't stop thinking about what Daniel had said. Let her believe her daddy didn't fail. Victoria had never thought about her father failing. He was Marcus Ashford. He didn't fail. He crushed. He conquered. He won. But he'd never once told her he loved her. Not when she was 6 years old crying at her mother's funeral. Not when she was 15 alone on the streets trying to survive. Not when she'd graduated top of her class from Harvard Business School. Not ever. Victoria looked at her reflection in the window again. She saw a woman in a designer suit. A woman who controlled a $3 billion empire. A woman who could fire anyone, buy anything, go anywhere. She saw a woman who was completely, utterly alone. The next morning, Victoria made a decision. She pulled up the security footage from the hotel lobby and watched Daniel's shift from the day before. She watched him handle the difficult guest. She watched him stay calm when everything inside him must have been breaking. She watched him leave at exactly 4 p.m., practically running to the train station. Then she pulled up his schedule and made a call. HR, this is Victoria Ashford. I want you to process a change for Daniel Carter. Yes, Miss Ashford. What kind of change? His schedule. Effective immediately. He ends at 3:30 p.m. Full pay. Miss Ashford, that's highly irregular. I didn't ask for your opinion. I gave you an order. Silence. Yes, Miss Ashford. Anything else? Victoria hesitated. The outstanding bills on his benefits account. His daughter's medical expenses. How much? The sound of typing. It looks like $4 or $347. Insurance denied the claim for his daughter's hospital visit last month. Pay it. From my personal account. Miss Ashford? Is there a problem? No, ma'am. I'll process it immediately. Victoria hung up. She stared at Daniel's photo for a long moment. What are you doing to me? She whispered. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Board member Gerald calling. Says it's urgent. Victoria typed back. Tell him I'm busy. He's insisting. Something about the Q4 projections. I said I'm busy. She set down her phone and turned back to the security footage. On the screen, Daniel was helping an elderly guest with her luggage. He was smiling. A real smile, not the fake ones Victoria saw every day. Something twisted in her chest. She'd spent her entire life building walls, keeping people out, proving that she didn't need anyone. And in one conversation, Daniel Carter had found a crack she didn't know existed. Victoria leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't know what to do next, and somehow that terrified her more than anything. 3 days later, everything changed. Mrs. Chen, Daniel's neighbor, called him at work. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I fell. My hip, they say it's broken. Daniel gripped the phone. Mrs. Chen, are you okay? I'm at the hospital. My daughter is coming from Milwaukee. But Lily, don't worry about Lily. I'll figure something out. I'm so sorry, Daniel. I know you depend on me. It's not your fault. Just focus on getting better. He hung up and stared at the lobby. His shift ended at 3:30. Now he didn't know why HR had just told him it was a schedule adjustment, but that still meant he had 3 hours before he could pick up Lily. And after today, he had no one to watch her in the evenings. No backup, no family, no options. He called the school. This is Daniel Carter. I need to speak with someone about after-school care. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. Our after-school program is full. There's a 6-month waiting list. 6 months, I need help tonight. I'm sorry. There's nothing we can do. Daniel hung up and pressed his palm against his forehead. Think, think, think. He could bring Lily to work, just for tonight. Just until he figured something out. He called his supervisor. Hey, it's Daniel. I have an emergency. My daughter, Carter. I'm slammed right now. Can this wait? It's urgent. I need to bring my daughter to work tonight, just for a few hours. Silence. Carter, this is a 4-star hotel. We can't have kids running around. She won't run around. She'll sit in the back. She'll be quiet. Please. More silence. Fine. 1 night. But if anyone complains, she's out. And so are you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Daniel hung up and took a breath. 1 night. He just needed to survive 1 night. At 4 p.m., Daniel picked up Lily from school. Daddy, where are we going? You're coming to work with me tonight, baby. Lily's eyes went wide. Really, I get to see your work. Yep, but you have to be really, really good. Can you do that? I can be the goodest. Daniel smiled despite everything. I know you can. They took the train to Midtown. Lily held his hand and chattered the whole way about her day, about her friend Sophie's hamster, about the book they were reading in class. Daniel listened to every word. This was why he kept going. This was why he survived. At the hotel, he took Lily through the service entrance and set her up on an overturned crate near the dishwashing station. Okay, baby. You stay right here. Color in your book. I'll check on you every 15 minutes. Okay, Daddy. And if anyone asks, you're very quiet and very well behaved. Lily made a zipping motion across her lips. Daniel kissed the top of her head and went back to the front desk. The dinner rush started at 5. By 6, the lobby was packed. Guests checking in, guests checking out guests, complaining about everything from room temperature to pillow firmness. Daniel handled it all. Smile, nod, apologize, fix it, move on. Every 15 minutes he slipped away to check on Lily. She was exactly where he'd left her, coloring quietly, occasionally waving at the dishwashers who walked by. At 7:30, he brought her dinner chicken tenders from the kitchen, slightly cold, but still good. "Daddy, this is so cool. I love your work." Daniel crouched beside her. "You're being so good, baby. I'm proud of you." "I'm always good." "You are. You're the best." He kissed her forehead and went back to work. At 8:15, everything fell apart. Daniel was at the front desk when Marcus ran up to him. "You gotta come quick, it's Lily." Daniel's blood went cold. "What happened?" "She collapsed. She's burning up." Daniel ran. He found Lily in the back hallway, lying on the floor. Her face was flushed. Her body was shaking. One of the servers was crouched beside her, looking terrified. "She just fell over," the server said. "1 second she was fine, and then—" Daniel dropped to his knees and pulled Lily into his arms. Her skin was on fire. "Baby Lily, can you hear me?" Lily's eyes fluttered open. "Daddy, I don't feel good." "I know, baby. I know. We're going to get you help." He pulled out his phone and called 911. Busy signal. He tried again. Still busy. "I need a car," he said to Marcus. "Right now. I need to get her to a hospital." "I don't have a car, man. None of us do." Daniel looked around frantically. Guests were walking through the lobby oblivious. Staff were busy with their tasks. No one was helping. "Somebody help me," he shouted. "My daughter is sick. I need Mr. Carter." He turned. Victoria Ashford stood in the doorway. She was wearing a black dress and heels, clearly on her way to some fancy event. But she wasn't moving toward the door. She was moving toward him. "My car is downstairs," she said. "Let's go. Now." Daniel didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. He just lifted Lily into his arms and followed Victoria through the service corridor, past the kitchen, down the stairs to the underground parking garage. Victoria's Tesla was parked in a reserved spot near the elevator. She unlocked it with a click and opened the back door. "Get in." Daniel slid into the back seat, Lily pressed against his chest. Her body was trembling. Her forehead was soaked with sweat. "Daddy," she whispered, "I'm scared." "I know, baby. I know. But we're going to get you help. Just hold on." Victoria got behind the wheel and pulled out of the garage before Daniel had even closed his door. The tires screeched as she merged into traffic. "Northwestern Memorial," Daniel said. "It's the closest." "I know where it is." Victoria drove like a woman possessed. She ran yellow lights, cut off taxis, ignored honking horns. Daniel didn't care. He didn't care about anything except the little girl in his arms. "Lily, baby, stay with me." Lily's eyes were half closed. Her breathing was shallow. "Mommy," she mumbled. "I want Mommy." Daniel's heart shattered. "I know, baby. I know, but Daddy's here. Daddy's got you." Victoria glanced at him in the rearview mirror. For a split second their eyes met. Then she looked back at the road and pressed harder on the accelerator. They made it to the hospital in 7 minutes. Victoria pulled up to the emergency entrance and slammed on the brakes. Daniel was out of the car before it fully stopped running through the automatic doors with Lily in his arms. "Help someone, help my daughter. She collapsed. She has a fever." A nurse rushed over. "Sir, what happened?" "I don't know. She was fine, and then she just fell." "How old is she?" 7. She's 7 years old." The nurse shouted something over her shoulder. Within seconds a team appeared with a gurney. Daniel laid Lily down, and they started wheeling her away. "Sir, you need to stay here." No, no, I'm going with her. Sir, that's my daughter. Daniel's voice cracked. I'm not leaving her. The nurse looked at him. Something in her expression softened. Okay, come with me, but you need to let the doctors work. Daniel followed them through the double doors, his heart pounding so hard he could barely breathe. Victoria stood alone in the emergency room lobby watching him disappear. She didn't know why she was still there. She had a charity gala to attend, 100 donors waiting to shake her hand, a speech to deliver about corporate responsibility. None of it mattered. She walked to the reception desk. The little girl who just came in. Lily Carter. I want to make sure she gets the best care available. The receptionist looked up. Are you family? No, I'm... Victoria paused. What was she? I'm a friend. I'm sorry, ma'am. I can only release information to family members. Victoria pulled out her wallet and set a black credit card on the counter. Whatever her treatment costs, put it on this. All of it. And upgrade her to a private room. The receptionist stared at the card, then at Victoria, then back at the card. Ma'am, I can't just... Yes, you can. Victoria's voice was ice. Call your supervisor if you need to. But that little girl is going to get the best care this hospital can provide. Do you understand? The receptionist swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Victoria took back her card and walked to the waiting area. She sat down in a plastic chair, crossed her legs and waited. She didn't know what she was waiting for. She didn't know why she cared. But she couldn't leave. 2 hours passed. Victoria sat in the same chair scrolling through emails she wasn't reading, ignoring texts from her assistant, asking where she was. The charity gala had started an hour ago. Her speech slot had come and gone. She didn't care. At 10:47 p.m., Daniel appeared in the waiting room doorway. His tie was gone. His shirt was untucked. His eyes were red, but he was smiling. She's okay, he said. It's a viral infection. Serious, but treatable. They want to keep her overnight for observation. Victoria stood up. That's good. I'm glad. Daniel looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since they'd gotten in the car. You're still here? Yes. Why? Victoria didn't have an answer. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know, she finally said. I couldn't leave. Daniel stared at her. The hostility that had been in his eyes 3 days ago was gone. In its place was something else. Confusion, maybe, or curiosity. Thank you, he said quietly, for driving us. He gestured vaguely at the hospital around them. For being here. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. Daniel took a step closer. 3 days ago, you made me believe I'd lost everything. Tonight you helped me save the only thing that matters. He paused. I don't understand you, Miss Ashford. That makes 2 of us. They stood there in the fluorescent-lit waiting room surrounded by strangers and the smell of antiseptic. Neither of them spoke. Finally, Daniel said, Do you want to see her? Victoria blinked. What? Lily, she's awake. She's been asking about the pretty lady with the fast car. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I think she means you. Victoria felt something twist in her chest. I shouldn't. I'm not family. Neither am I, technically. I'm just the guy who loves her more than anything in the world. Daniel turned toward the hallway. Come on, she won't bite. Victoria followed him. Lily's room was small but private. The little girl was propped up in bed, an IV in her arm, looking pale but alert. When she saw Victoria, her face lit up. You're the car lady. Victoria stopped in the doorway. Yes, I suppose I am. Your car was so fast, Daddy said you drove like a crazy person. Daniel winced. Lily? It's okay. Victoria surprised herself by laughing. I did drive like a crazy person. I wanted to get you here as fast as possible. Lily studied her with the unfiltered honesty that only children possess. "Are you my daddy's friend?" Victoria glanced at Daniel. He was watching her, his expression unreadable. I work with your daddy," Victoria said carefully. "So, you're his boss?" "Something like that." Lily nodded seriously. "Daddy says his boss is really mean." "Lily." Daniel's face went red. But Victoria just smiled. It was a strange feeling. She couldn't remember the last time she'd genuinely smiled. "Your daddy's not wrong," she said. "I can be pretty mean sometimes." "Why?" The question caught her off guard. Why are you mean?" Lily tilted her head. "My teacher says people are mean because they're sad inside. Are you sad inside?" The room went silent. Victoria felt something crack in her chest, a hairline fracture in a wall she'd spent years building. "Maybe," she whispered. "Maybe I am." Lily reached out her small hand. "It's okay. Daddy was sad inside too after Mommy went to heaven. But he got better. You can get better too." Victoria stared at the little girl's hand. So small, so trusting. She took it. "Thank you, Lily." "You're welcome." Lily yawned. "I'm tired now." "Then you should sleep." Victoria gently released her hand. "Feel better, okay?" "Okay." Lily's eyes were already closing. "Will you come visit me again?" Victoria looked at Daniel. He was standing by the window, his arms crossed, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "We'll see," she said. She slipped out of the room. Daniel followed. They stood in the hallway, neither of them speaking. A nurse walked past. A machine beeped somewhere in the distance. "She likes you," Daniel said finally. "She doesn't know me. Kids have good instincts." He paused. "Better than adults usually." Victoria leaned against the wall. She was exhausted. Her feet hurt from standing in heels for 3 hours. Her phone was buzzing constantly with messages she didn't want to read. "I should go," she said. "I have—" She stopped. What did she have? A charity gala she'd already missed, an empty penthouse, a board meeting in the morning. None of it seemed important anymore. "You should stay," Daniel said. Victoria looked at him. "What?" "With Lily. Just until she falls asleep." He rubbed the back of his neck. "She doesn't sleep well in strange places. Having someone else here might help." "I'm a stranger." "Not anymore." They looked at each other. 3 days ago he'd called her cruel. Tonight he was asking her to stay. "Okay," she heard herself say. "I'll stay." Daniel nodded. "I'm going to get coffee. You want anything?" "Black. No sugar." "Of course." A hint of a smile. "Be right back." He walked down the hallway toward the vending machines. Victoria watched him go, then slipped back into Lily's room. The little girl was already asleep. Her breathing was slow and steady. The monitors beeped softly. Victoria sat down in the chair beside the bed and looked at her. She thought about what Lily had said. "Are you sad inside?" Yes, she was. She'd been sad inside for so long she'd forgotten what happy felt like. Her mother had died when she was 6. Cancer. Victoria still remembered the hospital room, the machines, the sound of her mother's breathing getting slower and slower until it stopped. After the funeral, her father had pulled her aside. "Crying is weakness," he'd said. "From now on, you don't cry. You don't need anyone. You survive. Understand." She'd understood. For 28 years, she'd followed his rules. She'd built walls so high that no one could climb them. She'd convinced herself that loneliness was the same as strength. But sitting here watching this little girl sleep, Victoria realized something. She wasn't strong. She was just empty. Daniel came back with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Victoria and sat down on the opposite side of Lily's bed. "She's out," he said quietly. "She's beautiful." Daniel looked at his daughter. His face softened in a way Victoria had never seen before. She looks like her mother. Tell me about her. Your wife. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, her name was Sarah. We met in college. I was a business major, she was pre-med. She wanted to be a pediatrician. What happened? Life. Daniel sipped his coffee. She got pregnant junior year. We got married. She dropped out to have Lily planned to go back later. But later never came. How did she die? Daniel's jaw tightened. Hit and run. Lakeshore Drive. She was coming home from grocery shopping. Some drunk driver ran a red light, hit her car, and kept going. She died on impact. Did they catch him? No. They never found him. Daniel stared at his coffee cup. 3 years, and I still don't know who killed my wife. Sometimes I think about that. About some guy out there living his life, not even knowing he destroyed mine. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't do anything. I made you think you'd lost your job. 3 days after. Victoria stopped. No, I didn't know. But that doesn't make it okay. Daniel looked at her. Why did you do it, the test? The fake firing. Why? Victoria took a breath. My father. What about him? When I was 15, he took away everything I had. Money, phone, home. Told me to survive on my own for 6 weeks. No help, no safety net. Just me against the world. Daniel's eyes widened. He kicked you out at 15. He called it education. Victoria's voice was bitter. I worked 3 jobs, slept in shelters, ate ramen and stale bread. When it was over, he took me to dinner and told me I'd passed. Passed what? His test. He wanted to see if I was strong enough to inherit his company. Victoria looked down at her hands. He taught me that everyone has a breaking point, that the only way to know someone's true character is to take away what they need most and see how they react. That's not character. That's cruelty. Maybe. Victoria met his eyes. But it's all I know. Daniel set down his coffee and leaned forward. Miss Ashford. Victoria, please. Victoria. Sorry. He said her name like he was tasting it. What your father did to you was wrong, and what you did to me was wrong. But you're here now. You drove us to the hospital. You stayed. You held my daughter's hand. He paused. That's not nothing. It doesn't make up for... No, it doesn't. But it's a start. They sat in silence watching Lily sleep. The monitors beeped. The IV dripped. Somewhere down the hall a phone rang. Can I ask you something? Daniel said. Yes. Why didn't you just send a driver? Why did you come yourself? Victoria thought about it. I don't know. I saw you in the hallway holding Lily, shouting for help. And I moved. I didn't think about it. That's called instinct. I don't have instincts. I have strategies. Daniel almost smiled. Everyone has instincts, even billionaires. Is that what you think I am? Just a billionaire? I don't know what you are. Daniel looked at her. 3 days ago I thought you were a monster. Now I think you're just... lost. The word hit her harder than she expected. Lost. Yes. That's exactly what she was. My wife used to say something, Daniel continued. She said strength isn't about surviving alone. It's about having something worth surviving for. What does that mean? It means I get up every morning because of Lily. I work double shifts because of Lily. I keep going even when I want to give up because of Lily. He paused. What do you have, Victoria? What makes you keep going? She didn't answer. She couldn't answer. Because the truth was, she didn't have anything. She had money and power and a corner office on the 55th floor. But she didn't have anything worth surviving for. I don't know, she finally said. Daniel nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time to find out. They stayed at the hospital until dawn. Around 3 a.m., a nurse came in to check Lily's vitals. Victoria excused herself to use the restroom and splash water on her face. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her makeup was smeared. Her hair was falling out of its careful updo. Her designer dress was wrinkled beyond repair. She looked human. When was the last time she'd looked human? She went back to Lily's room. Daniel was asleep in his chair, his head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. Lily was still out cold, her small chest rising and falling steadily. Victoria sat down and watched them sleep. Father and daughter. Two people who had lost everything and still had each other. She envied them. She'd never envied anyone in her life, but she envied them. At 6 a.m., the doctor came in with good news. Lily's fever had broken. The antibiotics were working. She could go home this afternoon. Daniel hugged the doctor, actually hugged him. The doctor looked startled but pleased. "Thank you," Daniel said. "Thank you so much. Just doing my job, Mr. Carter. Your daughter is a fighter. She gets that from her mother." Victoria stood by the door, watching. When the doctor left, Daniel turned to her. "I should get back to work," she said before he could speak. "I have meetings, board presentations, the usual." Victoria. "I'm glad Lily's okay, really. She's a special kid." Victoria, wait. She stopped at the door. Daniel walked over to her. He was close enough that she could smell the hospital coffee on his breath, see the exhaustion in his eyes. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." "You already thanked me." "I know, but I wanted to say it again, and I wanted to say—" He hesitated. "I was wrong, about you. I said you'd forgotten what it feels like to be human, but you haven't. You just buried it, deep down." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. "I should go." "Will you come back to see Lily?" "I don't think that's appropriate." "Forget appropriate. She asked for you. She likes you." Daniel paused. "And I think you need her as much as she needs you." Victoria stared at him. This man who made $12 an hour. This man she'd tried to break with 2 words. This man who'd seen through every wall she'd ever built. "I'll think about it," she said. She walked out of the hospital and into the gray Chicago morning. Her car was still parked at the emergency entrance, a parking ticket tucked under the windshield wiper. She didn't care. She got in the car and drove back to Ashford Tower. The city was waking up around her. Buses, taxis, people rushing to work with coffee cups in their hands. Normal people, living normal lives. Victoria had never wanted to be normal. Her father had taught her that normal was mediocre, and mediocre was unacceptable. But watching Daniel with Lily, she'd seen something that wasn't mediocre at all. She'd seen love, pure, unconditional, fierce love. And for the first time in her life, Victoria Ashford wanted something money couldn't buy. She wanted to be loved like that. 3 days later, the photo appeared. Victoria was in her office reviewing quarterly reports when Rachel burst through the door without knocking. "Miss Ashford, we have a problem." Victoria looked up. "What kind of problem?" Rachel handed her a tablet. On the screen was a gossip website. The headline screamed in bold letters, "Billionaire Elise Harrington's secret family. Mystery man and child spotted in late-night hospital visit." Below the headline was a grainy photo. Victoria getting out of her car at the hospital. Daniel visible through the back window holding Lily. "It's everywhere," Rachel said. "Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Every major news outlet picked it up." Victoria stared at the photo. Her stomach dropped. "Who took this?" "We don't know. Probably someone with a cell phone. Get legal on the phone, now." "Already done. They're preparing a statement." Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from her father. "My office. Now." She closed her eyes. This was bad. This was very, very bad. The board meeting that afternoon was brutal. 12 men in expensive suits sat around the conference table staring at Victoria like she'd committed treason. Gerald, the CFO, spoke first. The stock price dropped 4% this morning. 4%. Do you understand what that means? It means we lost approximately $120 million in market value, Victoria said calmly. I can do math, Gerald. Then perhaps you can explain why you were photographed with an employee and his child in the middle of the night. The child was sick. I drove them to the hospital. Why? We have hundreds of employees. Do you make a habit of personally chauffeuring all of them? Victoria's jaw tightened. He needed help. I helped. You've created a scandal. Patricia, the head of investor relations, leaned forward. People are speculating that you have a secret family, that you've been lying to shareholders, that there's some kind of cover-up. There's no cover-up. I helped an employee whose daughter was sick. That's the whole story. The whole story doesn't matter. Gerald slammed his palm on the table. The perception matters, and right now, the perception is that you're hiding something. Victoria looked around the room. 12 faces. 12 people who had smiled at her, shaken her hand, told her what a great job she was doing. Not one of them was on her side. What do you want me to do? She asked. Gerald exchanged a look with Patricia. Then he said, Fire the employee. Daniel Carter. Issue a statement that he's been terminated for violating company policy. Distance yourself completely. Absolutely not. Victoria? I said no. Her voice was steel. Daniel Carter did nothing wrong. He's not going to be punished because some photographer took a picture at the wrong moment. This isn't about punishment. It's about damage control. Then find another way to control the damage. But you're not touching him. The room went silent. Gerald leaned back in his chair. The board has the authority to override you on personnel decisions. You know that. Then override me. Victoria stood up. But understand something. If you fire Daniel Carter, I will resign. And when I resign, I will hold a press conference explaining exactly why. I will tell the world that the board of Ashford Hotels fired a single father because a billionaire dared to show basic human decency. She looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. How do you think that will play with the shareholders? No one spoke. Victoria picked up her bag. This meeting is over. She walked out. That night, she sat alone in her penthouse and drank whiskey. The apartment was silent. Spotless. Every surface polished, every corner empty. She'd paid an interior designer $300,000 to make it look like something from a magazine. It looked like a museum. Beautiful and cold, and completely lifeless. Victoria poured herself another glass and stared at her phone. She should call Daniel, warn him about what was coming. The board might not fire him today, but they'd find another way. They always did. But she couldn't bring herself to dial. What would she say? Sorry I ruined your life by trying to help you. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for standing up for me. Lily says hi. Daniel. Victoria stared at the message. He knew. Somehow he already knew. She typed back, How did you hear? Marcus told me. Apparently the whole company is talking about it. I'm sorry, I never meant for any of this to happen. I know. Victoria hesitated, then typed, How is Lily? Better. She won't stop talking about the car lady. She wants to know when you're coming to visit. Victoria felt something warm bloom in her chest. Tell her I'll try to come by this weekend. She'll like that. There was a pause. Then another message. Victoria. Yes. Whatever happens with the board, whatever they decide to do, I don't regret meeting you. I think you're a good person who's been pretending to be a bad one for too long. Victoria read the message 3 times. Then she set down her phone and cried. Not the polished, controlled tears she sometimes allowed herself. Real tears. Ugly tears. The kind she hadn't cried since she was 6 years old, standing at her mother's grave while her father told her to stop sniffling. She cried until she had nothing left. And when she finally stopped, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next morning, Victoria made a decision. She called Rachel into her office. "Cancel my meetings for the rest of the week." Rachel's eyes went wide. "All of them. All of them." "Miss Ashford, you have the Morgan Stanley presentation on Thursday, the quarterly review on Friday. Reschedule them, or delegate them. I don't care." Rachel stared at her. "Are you okay?" "No." Victoria almost smiled. "But I'm going to be." She grabbed her coat and walked out of the office. She took the elevator down to the lobby, walked past the security desk, and stepped out onto the street. It was a beautiful morning. Sunny, crisp. The kind of morning that made you believe anything was possible. Victoria hailed a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. She gave him Daniel's address in Queens. The cab pulled away from Ashford Tower. Victoria looked back at the building, 60 floors of glass and steel, her father's legacy, her prison. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel trapped. She felt free. The cab pulled up to Daniel's building just as he was walking out the front door with Lily. Victoria paid the driver and stepped onto the sidewalk. Daniel saw her and stopped dead. "Victoria." "Hi." Lily's face lit up. "Car lady." She broke free from Daniel's hand and ran toward Victoria, throwing her arms around her legs. Victoria stumbled back, surprised, then slowly put her hand on Lily's head. "Hey, sweetheart, how are you feeling?" "I'm all better. The doctor said I was super brave." "I'm sure you were." Daniel walked over his expression, a mix of confusion and something else Victoria couldn't read. "What are you doing here?" "I don't know." Victoria surprised herself with the honesty. I needed to get out of that building, and I thought maybe—" "We're going to the park," Lily interrupted. "Daddy promised. You should come." "Lily, I'm sure Miss Ashford has—" "I'd love to," Victoria said. Daniel stared at her. "You want to go to the park? Is that so hard to believe? You're wearing heels that cost more than my monthly rent." Victoria looked down at her shoes. Louboutins, red soles, completely impractical. "I'll manage." They walked to the park 3 blocks away. Lily held both their hands, swinging between them like they were a real family. Victoria felt something twist in her chest every time Lily laughed. At the playground, Lily ran off to the swings. Daniel and Victoria sat on a bench watching her. "You shouldn't be here," Daniel said quietly. "I know. The board is going to lose their minds when they find out. Let them." Daniel turned to look at her. "What's going on with you? 3 days ago you were Victoria Ashford, Ice Queen billionaire. Now you're sitting on a park bench in Queens like a normal person." "Maybe I'm tired of being Victoria Ashford." "What does that mean?" Victoria watched Lily pump her legs on the swing, going higher and higher. "It means I spent the whole night thinking about what you said. About strength. About having something worth surviving for." She paused. "I realized I don't have anything. I have money and power and a corner office, but I don't have anything real." "So you came here?" "I came here." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Victoria, I appreciate what you did for us, at the hospital, at the board meeting. But you can't just show up and what? And pretend like we're friends. Like we're—" He stopped. "Like we're what?" Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. "I don't know. I don't know what this is." "Neither do I." Victoria turned to face him. "But I know that when I'm with you and Lily, I feel something I haven't felt in years. I feel human. I feel like maybe there's more to life than quarterly reports and shareholder meetings." "That's a nice sentiment. But you have a company to run. I have a daughter to raise. We live in completely different worlds." "What if we didn't?" Daniel frowned. What if we didn't live in different worlds? What if—" Her phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then started ringing. Victoria looked at the screen. "Rachel." "I have to take this." She stepped away from the bench and answered. "What is it?" "Miss Ashford, where are you? The board called an emergency meeting. Your father is here." Victoria's blood went cold. My father? He flew in this morning. He's demanding to see you. Tell him I'll be there in an hour. Miss Ashford, he's 1 hour. Rachel. She hung up and walked back to the bench. I have to go. Daniel nodded. He didn't look surprised. The real world calling? Something like that? Victoria hesitated. Can I come back to see Lily? Victoria. Please. Daniel looked at his daughter, still swinging, still laughing. Then he looked at Victoria. Yeah, he said finally. You can come back. Victoria smiled. It felt strange on her face, like a muscle she hadn't used in years. Thank you. She walked away from the park, her heels clicking on the sidewalk. Behind her, she heard Lily call out. Bye, car lady. Come back soon. Victoria raised her hand in a wave without turning around. She couldn't turn around. If she did, she might not leave. The emergency board meeting was already in progress when Victoria arrived. She walked into the conference room, and every head turned. Her father sat at the head of the table, her seat his hands folded, his expression stone. Marcus Ashford was 72 years old. He'd retired 5 years ago, handed Victoria the company, and moved to a mansion in Palm Beach. He was supposed to be playing golf and collecting art. Instead, he was here. Victoria. His voice was gravel. So nice of you to join us. Father. Victoria remained standing. I wasn't aware you were coming. Clearly, or you wouldn't have been gallivanting around Queens with an employee. He gestured to the chair beside him. Sit. I'll stand. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marcus Ashford was not a man who was accustomed to being defied. Not by board members, not by competitors, and certainly not by his own daughter. The board has been discussing your recent activities, he said slowly. We have concerns. I've addressed those concerns. You've threatened to resign if we fire one front desk clerk. That's not addressing concerns. That's throwing a tantrum. I was protecting an innocent employee. You were protecting yourself. Marcus leaned forward. Do you think I don't know what's really going on here? You've developed feelings for this man. This, he glanced at a paper in front of him. Daniel Carter. This has nothing to do with feelings. Don't insult my intelligence. Marcus's voice sharpened. I built this company from nothing. I taught you everything you know. And I did not spend 30 years creating an empire just to watch you destroy it because some pretty face made you forget who you are. Victoria felt her hands curl into fists. I know exactly who I am, Father. Do you? Because the Victoria Ashford I raised would never skip board meetings to sit in a park. The Victoria Ashford I raised would never defend an employee who's become a liability. The Victoria Ashford I raised understood that sentiment is weakness. Maybe the Victoria Ashford you raised was wrong. The room went silent. Marcus stared at her. For a long moment, no one moved, no one breathed. Then he laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. Wrong. I made you the youngest female CEO in the hospitality industry. I gave you a $3 billion company. I taught you how to survive in a world that destroys the weak. He stood up slowly, deliberately. And this is how you repay me. By going soft. By choosing some nobody over everything I built. He's not a nobody. He's a front desk clerk. He makes $12 an hour. He lives in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens. Marcus's voice rose. What can he possibly give you that you don't already have? Victoria thought about Daniel's smile when he looked at Lily. The way he'd held her hand at the hospital. The warmth in his voice when he said, thank you. Something you never could, she said quietly. He sees me as a person, not a legacy, not an investment, a person. Marcus's face went red. Get out. Father. I said get out. He slammed his palm on the table. You want to throw away everything I gave you for some romantic fantasy? Fine. But don't expect me to watch. Get out of this meeting. Get out of this building. And get your head straight before you lose everything. Victoria looked at the board members. 12 faces all staring at the table, refusing to meet her eyes. Cowards. Every single one of them. She turned and walked to the door. Victoria. She stopped. You have 1 week, Marcus said. 1 week to end this situation. Fire the employee. Issue a statement. Fix the damage. If you don't, I'll call an emergency shareholder meeting and have you removed as CEO. Victoria didn't turn around. You can't do that. I have controlling interest. You have 32%. I have 28%. And I've already spoken to the institutional investors. They're very concerned about your judgment. One more scandal, one more photo, one more hint that you've lost focus, and they'll vote you out. Victoria gripped the door handle. 1 week, Victoria. Make your choice. She walked out without looking back. That night, Victoria sat in her penthouse and stared at her father's ultimatum. 1 week. End the situation. Fire Daniel. Fix the damage. Or lose everything. She poured herself a drink and thought about what everything really meant. The company she'd worked her whole life for it. Sacrificed relationships, friendships, any semblance of a normal life. The idea of losing it made her sick. But then she thought about Daniel, about Lily, about the way she'd felt sitting on that park bench watching a little girl swing higher and higher. She thought about what Daniel had said at the hospital. Strength isn't about surviving alone, it's about having something worth surviving for. Her phone rang. Daniel's number. She answered. Hello. Hey, I just saw the news. What news? Your father. The ultimatum. It's all over the financial blogs. Victoria closed her eyes. Of course it was. Nothing stayed private in this world. I'm handling it. Are you? Yes. Silence on the other end. Victoria, if this is too much, if being associated with me is going to cost you your company, don't. I'm serious. Lily and I will be fine. We were fine before you came along. We'll be fine after. I said, don't. Victoria's voice cracked. Don't make this easy for me. Don't give me an excuse to walk away. I'm not giving you an excuse. I'm giving you an out. I don't want an out. She was shouting now. She didn't care. I want. What? What do you want? Victoria took a shaky breath. I want to be the person Lily thinks I am. I want to be someone worth knowing. I want to feel something other than empty. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I want you. The words hung in the air. Daniel was quiet for so long Victoria thought he'd hung up. Then he said, Come over. It's midnight. I know. Come over anyway. Victoria grabbed her keys. 20 minutes later, she was standing outside Daniel's apartment door. He opened it before she could knock. Hi. Hi. They stared at each other. Then Daniel stepped aside and let her in. The apartment was dark except for a lamp in the corner. Lily's door was closed. The refrigerator hummed softly. She's asleep, Daniel said. Good. They stood in the middle of the tiny living room, neither of them moving. I don't know how to do this, Victoria said. I don't know how to be with someone. Not really. My whole life I've kept people at a distance. I've told myself it's because I'm strong, because I don't need anyone. But the truth is, she stopped. The truth is, what? I'm terrified. Her voice was barely audible. I'm terrified of letting someone in, of being vulnerable, of giving someone the power to hurt me. Daniel took a step closer. Victoria. My father taught me that love is weakness, that trusting people makes you easy to destroy. And I believed him. For 28 years I believed him. Tears were streaming down her face now. She didn't try to stop them. But then I met you. And I saw the way you love Lily. And I realized, she choked on the words, realized what? That my father was wrong. She looked up at him. Love isn't weakness. Loving someone, having someone to fight for, that's the only thing that makes any of this worth it. Daniel reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek. Victoria, I can't promise you anything. I'm broke. I live in a crappy apartment. I work double shifts just to keep the lights on. I have nothing to offer you. You have everything to offer me. I'm serious. Your world and my world, they don't mix. The board, your father, the press, they're going to try to tear us apart. Let them try. Daniel shook his head. You say that now. But when you're sitting in front of shareholders explaining why you threw away your career for a front desk clerk. Victoria kissed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't elegant. She just stepped forward, put her hands on his face, and pressed her lips to his. Daniel froze. Then his arms came around her waist, and he pulled her closer. The kiss lasted forever, and not long enough. When they finally broke apart, Victoria was shaking. I'm sorry, she breathed. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. Daniel's voice was rough. Don't ever apologize for that. They stood there, foreheads pressed together, breathing hard. What happens now? Victoria whispered. I don't know. Daniel pulled back and looked at her. But we'll figure it out. Together. Together. Victoria smiled through her tears. I like the sound of that. The week passed faster than Victoria expected. She went to work every day, sat in meetings, signed documents, made decisions. But her mind was always somewhere else. On Daniel. On Lily. On the choice she knew she'd have to make. The board watched her like hawks. Every email was scrutinized. Every meeting was documented. Her father called twice a day, demanding updates, threatening consequences. Victoria ignored him. Instead, she spent her evenings in Queens. She brought dinner for Daniel and Lily. She helped Lily with her homework. She sat on the couch and watched cartoons until the little girl fell asleep in her lap. It was the happiest she'd been in years. On the fifth night, Lily looked up at her with serious eyes. Victoria. They'd graduated from car lady to her actual name. Victoria loved the sound of it in Lily's voice. Yes, sweetheart. Are you going to be my new mommy? Victoria's heart stopped. Daniel, who'd been washing dishes in the kitchen, went completely still. Lily, he said carefully, we talked about this. I know, you said mommy went to heaven and she's not coming back. Lily's lower lip trembled. But I want a new mommy, and Victoria is really nice, and she makes you smile. You never smile anymore, Daddy, but when Victoria is here, you smile. Daniel set down the dish he was holding. His hands were shaking. Victoria pulled Lily closer. Sweetheart, your daddy and I were still figuring things out. It's complicated. Why? Because. Victoria looked at Daniel. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Because grown-ups make everything complicated, even when it doesn't have to be. Lily considered this. That's dumb. Victoria laughed. You know what, you're right. It is dumb. So are you going to be my new mommy or not? The room went silent. Victoria looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at Victoria. I would like that very much, Victoria said quietly. If your daddy says it's okay. Daniel's eyes were wet. He walked over and sat down on the couch beside them. What do you think, Lily? He asked, his voice hoarse. Should we keep her? Lily beamed. Yes. She threw her arms around Victoria's neck. Victoria held her tight, tears streaming down her face. Daniel put his arm around both of them. For one perfect moment, everything was right. Then Victoria's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Rachel. I have to take this. She stepped into the hallway and answered. What is it? Miss Ashford? I'm sorry to call so late, but we have a situation. What kind of situation? Your father. He's called an emergency shareholder meeting for tomorrow morning. He's filed a motion to remove you as CEO. Victoria's blood turned to ice. He said I had a week. I know, but apparently one of the board members leaked photos. You and Mr. Carter, at the park, entering his apartment building. Rachel's voice was strained. The institutional investors are spooked. They're backing your father. Victoria leaned against the wall. What time is the meeting? 9 a.m. Miss Ashford, I'm sorry. I tried to. It's not your fault, Rachel. I'll be there. She hung up and walked back into the apartment. Daniel took one look at her face and knew. What happened? My father called an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. He's going to try to remove me as CEO. Daniel stood up. Can he do that? With enough votes, yes. Victoria looked at Lily, who was watching them with wide eyes. I have to go. Victoria. I'm sorry. I'll call you tomorrow, after the meeting. She grabbed her coat and headed for the door. Victoria, wait. She stopped. Daniel walked over to her. He took her face in his hands and looked into her eyes. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever they try to do, remember what you said. Love isn't weakness. Having something to fight for, that's what makes it worth it. What if I lose? Then you lose, and we figure out what comes next, together. He kissed her forehead. You're not alone anymore. Remember that. Victoria nodded. She couldn't speak. She walked out of the apartment and into the cold night air. Tomorrow, everything would change, one way or another. The shareholder meeting started at 9 a.m. sharp. Victoria arrived at 8:30. She wore her best suit, charcoal gray, sharp lines, power personified. Her hair was pulled back. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a CEO. She felt like a woman walking to her execution. The conference room was packed. Board members, institutional investors, lawyers, accountants. Her father sat at the head of the table, a stack of papers in front of him. Victoria. He nodded curtly. Take a seat. I'll stand. Suit yourself. The meeting began with the usual formalities. Financial reports, performance metrics, quarterly projections. Victoria had heard it all 1,000 times. Then her father stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to address the elephant in the room. He looked directly at Victoria. Over the past 2 weeks, our CEO has engaged in conduct that calls her judgment into question. She's formed an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate employee. She's been photographed repeatedly in compromising situations. She's threatened to resign rather than address legitimate board concerns. He paused for effect. The market has noticed. Our stock price is down 7%. Investor confidence is shaken, and unless we take action, it will only get worse. Victoria stepped forward. May I respond? You'll have your chance. I'd like it now. Her father's jaw tightened. Fine, go ahead. Victoria looked around the room. 50 faces. 50 people who held the fate of her company, her life in their hands. You're right, she said. I've formed a relationship with an employee, Daniel Carter. He's a front desk clerk at Ashford Grand Hotel. He makes $12 an hour. He lives in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens. He's a single father raising a 7-year-old daughter. Murmurs rippled through the room. When I first met him, I put him through a test. I told him he was fired just to see how he'd react. It was cruel, it was wrong, and his response changed my life. She took a breath. He didn't beg, he didn't rage. He looked me in the eye and asked me not to tell his daughter. He said, let her believe I'm still trying my best. Let her believe her daddy didn't fail. The room was silent. In that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. I saw a man who loved his daughter more than he loved himself. A man who had lost everything, his wife, his security, his future, and kept going anyway. Not for himself, for her. Victoria's voice wavered, but she pushed on. My father taught me that love is weakness, that needing people makes you vulnerable, that the only way to succeed is to stand alone. She looked at Marcus, but he was wrong. Her father's expression didn't change. Daniel Carter taught me that real strength isn't about standing alone. It's about having something worth standing for. It's about loving someone so much that you'd do anything to protect them. It's about being human. She turned back to the shareholders. Yes, I've fallen in love. Yes, it's created a scandal. And yes, if you remove me as CEO today, I'll walk out of this building with nothing but the clothes on my back. She paused. But I'll walk out with something I didn't have 2 weeks ago. I'll walk out knowing what it feels like to be truly alive. Silence. So go ahead. Vote. Remove me. Take back the company my father gave me. Victoria lifted her chin. But know this, I'd rather lose everything and have Daniel and Lily than keep this empire and spend the rest of my life alone. She sat down. The room erupted. Board members talked over each other. Investors whispered urgently. Her father's face had gone red, then white, then red again. Order. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Order. The room slowly quieted. This is exactly the kind of emotional irrationality I warned you about, Marcus said. My daughter has clearly lost perspective. She's willing to throw away a $3 billion company for what? A romance? A fantasy? It's not a fantasy, Victoria said calmly. Then what is it? You've known this man for 2 weeks. You've spent, a few hours together. You don't know anything about him. I know he held his daughter's hand for 6 hours at the hospital and never once complained. I know he works double shifts so she can have a better life. I know he looks at me like I'm a person, not a balance sheet. Victoria's voice hardened. Do you even remember what that's like, father being looked at like you matter? The room went very still. Marcus Ashford stared at his daughter. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe? Or regret? Then it was gone. Call the vote, he said. The board secretary stood. All those in favor of removing Victoria Ashford as CEO of Ashford Hotels and Dining, please raise your hand. Victoria watched the hands go up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her heart pounded. 5, 6. She counted the faces, counted the betrayals. 7. Then the hands stopped. The secretary cleared his throat. All those opposed? More hands went up. 8. 9. 10. Victoria couldn't breathe. 11. 12. 13. The motion fails, the secretary announced. Victoria Ashford remains CEO. The room exploded again. Victoria sat very still, unable to process what had just happened. She'd won. She'd actually won. Her father stood up slowly. His face was unreadable. This isn't over, he said quietly. Only Victoria could hear him. You've made your choice. Now you'll live with the consequences. He walked out of the conference room without looking back. Victoria sat there for a long moment, surrounded by chaos. Then she pulled out her phone and typed a message to Daniel. I won. 3 dots appeared immediately. I knew you would. Then another message. Come home. Victoria smiled. Home. She'd never had a home before. Maybe now she did. Victoria left Ashford Tower and took a cab straight to Queens. She didn't stop at her penthouse to change. She didn't check her emails or return the dozens of calls flooding her phone. She just sat in the back of the taxi watching the city blur past, replaying the vote in her mind. 13-7. She'd won. But her father's words echoed in her head. This isn't over. You've made your choice. Now you'll live with the consequences. Marcus Ashford didn't make empty threats. Whatever was coming, it would be bad. The cab pulled up to Daniel's building. Victoria paid the driver and walked up the 3 flights of stairs, her heels echoing in the empty hallway. She knocked on apartment 3C. The door flew open. Daniel stood there, still in his work uniform, his face a mix of relief and disbelief. "You actually came." "I said I would." "I know, but—" He shook his head. "After everything that happened today, I figured you'd have a million things to deal with." "I do." Victoria stepped inside. "But none of them matter as much as this." Lily came running from her bedroom. "Victoria!" She threw herself at Victoria's legs, nearly knocking her over. Victoria laughed and crouched down to hug her. "Hey, sweetheart. Daddy said you had a big meeting today. Did you win?" Victoria looked up at Daniel. He was watching them with wet eyes. "Yeah, baby. I won." "Yay." Lily bounced up and down. "What did you win? A trophy, a prize?" "Something better." Victoria stood up, still holding Lily's hand. "I won the chance to keep being here. With you and your daddy." Lily beamed. "That's the best prize ever." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "Yeah, it really is." Daniel stepped forward and pulled them both into a hug. The three of them stood there in the middle of the tiny apartment, holding each other, not speaking. For the first time in her life, Victoria Ashford felt like she belonged somewhere. That night, after Lily went to bed, Victoria and Daniel sat on the couch and talked. "What happens now?" Daniel asked. "I don't know." Victoria leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "My father said there would be consequences. I believe him." "What kind of consequences?" "With him, anything. He could go after my shares, poison the board against me, leak stories to the press." She closed her eyes. "He's been planning my whole life, building me into what he wanted, and now that I've gone off script, he'll do whatever it takes to get me back under control. Or destroy you trying. Or that." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Maybe you should give him what he wants." Victoria sat up. "What?" "Fire me. Issue the statement. Make it all go away." Daniel's face was calm, but his voice was tight. "I told you before, Lily and I will be fine. We were fine before you came along." "Daniel, I'm serious. I'm not worth losing your company over." "Stop." Victoria grabbed his hand. "Stop saying that. Stop acting like you're not worth fighting for." "I'm being realistic. You're a billionaire. I'm a front desk clerk. In what world does this work?" "In this one." Victoria squeezed his hand. "You asked me once what I have worth surviving for. The answer is you. You and Lily. That's it. That's everything." Daniel stared at her. "You've known me for 2 weeks." "I know. And in 2 weeks you've shown me more about what life should look like than I've learned in 34 years. She reached up and touched his face. "I'm not giving you up. Not for my father. Not for the board. Not for anyone. Victoria, I love you." The words came out before she could stop them. Daniel froze. His eyes went wide. "What?" "I love you." Victoria's voice was shaking, but she didn't look away. "I know it's crazy. I know it's too fast. I know everything about this is wrong. But I love you, Daniel. I love the way you look at Lily. I love the way you stood up to me even when I had all the power. I love that you see me, really see me, not just the money or the name or the company." She took a breath. "I've never said those words to anyone. Not once in my entire life. But I'm saying them now. Because you deserve to hear them. Because I need you to know." Daniel didn't speak for a long moment. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her so tight she could barely breathe. "I love you too," he whispered against her hair. "God help me. I love you too." Victoria buried her face in his chest and cried. Not sad tears. Not afraid tears. Just relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. She wasn't alone anymore. The next 2 weeks were the happiest of Victoria's life. She went to work every day, handled her responsibilities, managed the board. But every evening she went to Queens. She had dinner with Daniel and Lily. She helped with homework. She watched cartoons. She read bedtime stories. It was simple. It was ordinary. It was everything she'd never known she wanted. At work, she started making changes. First, she promoted Daniel. Not to anything flashy. She didn't want to give her father more ammunition, but to guest services supervisor with a salary that finally reflected his work ethic. "You don't have to do this," Daniel said when she told him. "I'm not doing it for us. I'm doing it because you've deserved this for 3 years and nobody noticed." Then she implemented new policies across all Ashford properties. Flexible scheduling for parents, paid family leave, childcare subsidies, an employee assistance fund for medical emergencies. The board pushed back. The accountants complained about costs, but Victoria held firm. "We spend $2 million a year on executive retreats," she said in one meeting. "I think we can find room in the budget for people who actually make this company run." The changes went through. Word spread quickly among the staff. The CEO was different now. The Ice Queen had thawed. People started smiling when they saw her, started saying hello instead of scurrying away. Victoria wasn't sure how she felt about being liked. She'd spent so long being feared. But she was starting to think maybe fear wasn't such a great strategy after all. 3 weeks after the shareholder meeting, Victoria's father made his move. She was in her office when Rachel burst in pale-faced. "Miss Ashford, there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" Rachel handed her a tablet. On the screen was a press release from Ashford Hotel's largest institutional investor. "They're divesting 20% of their holdings." Victoria's stomach dropped. Why? They cite concerns about leadership stability and corporate governance. Rachel hesitated. "Miss Ashford, there's more. 3 other major investors announced the same thing this morning, all within an hour of each other." Victoria set down the tablet. Her hands were steady, but inside she was reeling. "My father. We can't prove that." "We don't need to prove it, I know." Victoria stood up and walked to the window. "He's pressuring the investors to sell, trying to tank the stock price, force the board to reconsider." "What do we do?" Victoria thought about Daniel, about Lily, about the life she was building. Then she thought about her father, about 28 years of tests and lessons and cold calculated control. "Get me a meeting with the remaining institutional investors. All of them. Tomorrow, if possible." "Miss Ashford, that's—" "I know what it is. Set it up." Rachel nodded and hurried out. Victoria stared at her reflection in the window. Her father wanted a war fine. She'd give him one. The investor meeting was brutal. Victoria stood in front of 14 representatives from various investment firms, pension funds, hedge funds, private equity. They controlled nearly 40% of Ashford Hotel's publicly traded shares. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Victoria began. "Let's skip the pleasantries," said Howard Chen, managing director of Pacific Rim Capital. "We're here because we're concerned. Your father reached out to several of us last week. He made some alarming claims." "I'm sure he did." "He said you've become emotionally compromised, that you're making decisions based on personal relationships rather than business fundamentals." Howard leaned forward. "He said you're in love with an employee." "I am." The room went silent. Victoria didn't flinch. "His name is Daniel Carter. He's a guest services supervisor at our flagship Chicago property. He's a single father raising a 7-year-old daughter. And yes, I'm in love with him." Murmurs rippled through the room. "But my personal life has nothing to do with my ability to run this company. Since I became CEO 5 years ago, I've increased revenue by 42%. I've expanded into 3 new markets. I've maintained best-in-class guest satisfaction scores across all properties." She pulled up a presentation on the screen behind her. "In the past 3 weeks, I've implemented new employee policies that have already reduced turnover by 8%. Happy employees mean better service. Better service means repeat customers. Repeat customers mean higher revenue. She clicked to the next slide. My father thinks love is weakness. He thinks caring about people makes you vulnerable, but he's wrong. Companies aren't just balance sheets and quarterly projections. They're people. And when you treat people well, when you actually care about them, they work harder. They stay longer. They make you more money. She looked around the room. So yes, I'm in love with an employee, and yes, my father disapproves. But I've never been more focused, more motivated, or more committed to making this company successful. She paused. The question is, are you going to bet on his version of leadership or mine? Silence. Then Howard Chen laughed. Well, that was unexpected. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. Howard stood up. I've known your father for 15 years. He's brilliant, ruthless, and he's never let sentiment interfere with business. Victoria's heart sank. But, Howard continued, I've also seen what his approach does to people. Burnout, broken families, executives who work themselves into early graves. He looked at her. Maybe it's time to try something different. Does that mean? It means I'm not selling. Not today anyway. Howard looked at the other investors. Anyone else? One by one, the investors nodded. We'll give you 6 months, Howard said. Show us results, real results. If the numbers hold up, you'll have our full support. And if they don't, then your father gets what he wants. Victoria nodded. 6 months. I can work with that. She shook Howard's hand and walked out of the meeting. Her hands didn't start shaking until she was alone in the elevator. That night, Victoria told Daniel everything. They sat on his couch while Lily slept in the next room. Victoria talked for an hour straight, the meeting, the investors, the 6-month deadline. So that's where we stand, she finished. 6 months to prove that I can run the company and have a personal life. And if you can't, then I lose everything. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Maybe we should slow down, he finally said. Victoria felt like she'd been punched. What? Just hear me out. Daniel took her hands. You're under incredible pressure. You've got your father trying to destroy you. You've got investors watching your every move. And now you've got me and Lily to worry about too. You're not something I worry about. You're something I know. But maybe just for the next 6 months we keep a lower profile. No more photos, no more public appearances. We just hide. Be careful. Victoria pulled her hands away. No. Victoria. I said no. She stood up and walked to the window. I've spent my whole life hiding. Hiding my feelings. Hiding my needs. Hiding anything that might make me look weak. She turned to face him. I'm done hiding. This isn't about hiding. This is about strategy. It's about fear. My father wants me to be afraid. He wants me to pull back, play it safe, prove him right. Victoria shook her head. I won't do that. Not for him. Not for anyone. Even if it costs you the company. Even then. Daniel stared at her. You're willing to lose everything. For what principle? For you. Victoria walked over and knelt in front of him. Daniel, I told you I love you. That's not something I can turn off because the timing is inconvenient. That's not something I can hide until the coast is clear. I'm not asking you to turn it off. I'm asking you to be strategic. Be careful. Be my father's daughter. Victoria took his face in her hands. But I don't want to be his daughter anymore. I want to be the woman you fell in love with. The woman who shows up, who fights, who doesn't back down. Daniel's eyes were wet. Victoria, trust me, please. I know what I'm doing. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I trust you. 2 months later, Victoria's changes started showing results. Employee turnover dropped 12% across all properties. Guest satisfaction scores reached an all-time high. Revenue was up 6% year over year. The board noticed. I have to admit, Gerald said at one meeting, I didn't think your approach would work, but the numbers don't lie. Thank you, Gerald. Don't thank me yet. Your father's still out there, and he's not going to stop just because we're having a good quarter. Victoria nodded. I know. She'd heard rumors. Her father was meeting with private equity firms, exploring hostile takeover options, building alliances with disgruntled board members. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. But for the first time, Victoria felt like she could win. One evening she came home to Daniel's apartment and found Lily waiting at the door. Victoria? Guess what? What, sweetheart? I made something for you. Lily grabbed her hand and dragged her into the living room. On the coffee table was a crayon drawing 3 stick figures holding hands under a big yellow sun. That's you, Lily said, pointing to the tallest figure. And that's Daddy. And that's me. Victoria picked up the drawing. Her throat felt tight. It's beautiful, Lily. There's more. Lily pointed to a word scrawled at the bottom in wobbly letters. I wrote, family. Mrs. Patterson taught me how to spell it. Victoria couldn't speak. She'd spent 34 years building walls, protecting herself, convincing herself that she didn't need anyone. And now, here was a 7-year-old girl calling her family. Daniel came out of the kitchen drying his hands on a towel. Lily, did you show her the... He stopped when he saw Victoria's face. Hey, you okay? Victoria looked up at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. She called me family. Daniel smiled. Yeah, she's been working on that drawing all week. But I'm not. I mean, we're not. Does it matter? Daniel walked over and put his arm around her. You show up every night. You help with homework. You read bedtime stories. You're here. He kissed the top of her head. That's what family is. Victoria held up the drawing. Can I keep this? I made it for you, Lily said proudly. You can put it on your refrigerator. Victoria thought about her penthouse, the spotless surfaces, the empty walls, the refrigerator that held nothing but sparkling water and leftover takeout. I don't have anything on my refrigerator. Then it'll be the first thing, Lily said like it was the most obvious solution in the world. Victoria laughed through her tears. Yeah, it will be. That weekend, Victoria did something she'd never done before. She invited Daniel and Lily to her penthouse. Are you sure? Daniel asked. Lily can be energetic. I'm sure. They took a cab to Ashford Tower, a different entrance than the office, a private elevator to the residential floors. When the doors opened, Lily's jaw dropped. Whoa! The penthouse was 3,000 square feet of polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art on the walls, designer furniture arranged with geometric precision. This is where you live? Lily asked. Yes. It's really clean. I have people who clean it. Lily wandered into the living room, looking around with wide eyes. She stopped in front of a sculpture that had cost Victoria $50,000. What's this? It's art. It looks like a broken umbrella. Daniel stifled a laugh. Victoria found herself smiling. You know what? You're right. It does look like a broken umbrella. Lily continued her exploration. She found the kitchen. Your refrigerator is huge. The bathroom. You have a TV in your bathtub. And the bedroom. Your bed is bigger than our whole apartment. Victoria watched her run from room to room, filling the silence with questions and exclamations. The penthouse had never felt like home. It had always felt like a hotel, beautiful, impersonal, empty. But watching Lily press her nose against the window, marveling at the view, something shifted. Daniel came up beside her. You okay? I was just thinking. About what? About how quiet this place has always been. Victoria looked at him. I don't want quiet anymore. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What do you want? Victoria looked at Lily, who was now attempting to figure out the voice-activated blinds. I want chaos, laughter, crayon drawings on the refrigerator. She turned back to Daniel. I want you. Both of you. Here. All the time. Daniel's eyes widened. Victoria, are you asking us to move in? Yes. Victoria's heart was pounding. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together 2 months, but I've spent my whole life being careful and I'm tired of it. I want to come home to Lily's laughter. I want to wake up next to you. I want to stop being alone. Daniel stared at her. What about Lily's school? It's in Queens. There are good schools here. Better schools. I can pay for... Victoria. She stopped. Daniel took her hands. I don't care about schools. I don't care about this penthouse or the view or any of it. He paused. What I care about is whether you're sure. Because Lily's already attached to you. If we do this, if we move in, and then it falls apart. It won't fall apart. You can't know that. You're right. I can't. Victoria squeezed his hands. But I know how I feel. And I know what I want. And I know that every day I spend without you feels like a waste. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then Lily came running back into the room. Victoria, the toilet talks. Victoria burst out laughing. It's a bidet, sweetheart. It said welcome in a robot voice. Daniel looked at Victoria, then at his daughter, then back at Victoria. Okay, he said. Okay. Okay, we'll move in, but on one condition. Anything. We're not just your guests here. This becomes our home too. Lily's drawings on the walls, my stuff in the closet. Real life, not some magazine spread. That's what I want. Then yes. Daniel pulled her into a hug. Yes, we'll move in. Yay! Lily shouted, even though she hadn't fully understood the conversation. Are we having a sleepover? Victoria laughed and opened her arms. Lily ran into them. Something like that, sweetheart. Something like that. The next month was chaos in the best possible way. Daniel and Lily moved into the penthouse. Boxes everywhere. Toys scattered across pristine marble floors. Lily's drawings taped to the $50,000 broken umbrella sculpture because she thought it looked sad. Victoria had never been happier. She came home from work one evening to find Daniel cooking dinner while Lily did homework at the kitchen island. Hey, Daniel said, kissing her cheek. How was your day? Long, but better now. Victoria. Lily looked up from her math worksheet. I got an A on my spelling test. That's amazing, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. Daddy said if I keep getting A's, I can have a puppy. Victoria looked at Daniel. A puppy. We're negotiating, Daniel said with a smile. Victoria sat down at the island next to Lily. This was her life now. Homework and spelling tests and puppy negotiations. She'd never imagined she could want something so ordinary. But she did. She wanted it more than anything she'd ever wanted before. Her phone buzzed. Rachel. I have to take this. She stepped into the bedroom and answered. What is it? Miss Ashford. I'm sorry to bother you at home, but there's news. What kind of news? Your father. He's called another board meeting. Tomorrow at 9. Victoria's stomach clenched. On what grounds? I don't know. He's not saying. But Howard Chen called. He said some of the other investors have been getting calls again. Pressure to sell. The 6 months isn't up yet. I know, but your father's not playing by the rules. Of course he wasn't. Marcus Ashford had never played by anyone's rules but his own. I'll be there tomorrow, Victoria said. And Rachel, thank you for the warning. She hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at nothing. Her father was making his final move. She could feel it. Whatever came tomorrow, everything was about to change. Victoria walked back into the kitchen. Daniel and Lily were laughing about something, a joke she'd missed, a moment she hadn't been part of. She watched them for a long moment. Then she sat down, picked up a crayon, and helped Lily with her math. Whatever came tomorrow, She wasn't going to waste tonight. Victoria arrived at Ashford Tower at 7:30 the next morning. The building was quiet. Most employees wouldn't arrive for another hour. She took the elevator to the 55th floor and walked into her office. Her father was already there, sitting in her chair. "You're early," she said. "So are you." Marcus Ashford didn't stand. He just looked at her with those cold, calculating eyes. "I wanted to talk before the meeting." "There's nothing to talk about." "There's everything to talk about." He gestured to the chair across from the desk, her chair. "Sit down, Victoria." "I'll stand." Marcus sighed. Still stubborn. After everything, still stubborn. "I learned from the best." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Yes, you did." They stared at each other. Father and daughter. Two people who shared blood, but nothing else. "Why are you doing this?" Victoria asked. "The company is thriving. Revenue is up. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. By every metric, I'm succeeding. By every metric except the one that matters. Which is control." Marcus leaned forward. "You've lost control, Victoria. You've let sentiment cloud your judgment. You've let a nobody distract you from what's important." "Daniel isn't a distraction. He's my partner." "He's a liability." Marcus's voice sharpened. "How long until he starts making demands? How long until he uses your relationship to advance his own interests? How long until he becomes another person you have to manage instead of lead? You don't know him." "I don't need to know him. I know people." Marcus stood up slowly. "Everyone wants something, Victoria. Everyone has an agenda. The only way to protect yourself is to never let anyone get close enough to hurt you. That's not protection. That's prison. It's survival." "No, father." Victoria shook her head. "It's death. Slow, cold, lonely death." Marcus's expression flickered, just for a moment. Then it hardened again. "I didn't come here to argue philosophy. I came here to give you one last chance." "To do what?" "To save yourself." "Wait." Marcus pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This is a resignation letter. Pre-dated, pre-signed by me as acting chairman. All you have to do is add your signature, and this all goes away." "Goes away?" "The board meeting, the investor pressure, everything." Marcus set the envelope on the desk. "You resign gracefully. I take over as interim CEO. You keep your shares, your money, your position on the board. You just step back and let me fix what you've broken." Victoria stared at the envelope. "And Daniel?" "He's terminated, immediately. With a generous severance package, of course. Enough to keep him quiet." "You want me to fire the man I love?" "I want you to wake up." Marcus's voice rose. "You think this is love. This is infatuation. This is a fantasy you've constructed because you're lonely and scared and desperate for someone to tell you you're good enough. That's not... I've seen this before, Victoria. Your mother was the same way. Always looking for connection, always needing to be loved. It made her weak. It killed her." Victoria felt like she'd been slapped. "Don't you dare talk about Mom." "Someone has to." Marcus's eyes were cold. "Cancer didn't kill your mother. Hope did. She spent years hoping things would get better, hoping I would change, hoping love would be enough. And when it wasn't, when reality finally caught up with her, she had nothing left. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. And I watched it destroy her." Marcus stepped closer. "I made a promise at her funeral. I promised myself I would never let you become like her. I would make you strong. I would make you independent. I would make you someone who didn't need anyone. By making me someone who couldn't love anyone. By making you someone who couldn't be destroyed by love." They stood face to face. Father and daughter. Two people shaped by the same loss, twisted in opposite directions. "I'm not Mom," Victoria said quietly. And Daniel isn't you. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Victoria picked up the envelope. You want to know the difference between you and Daniel? When his wife died, he fell apart. He stopped eating, stopped working, stopped living. But then his daughter crawled into his lap and asked if he was going to leave her too. And you know what he did? Marcus didn't answer. He got up. He got a job. He worked double shifts and ate ramen and slept on a couch so his daughter could have a bedroom. He did whatever it took to be there for her. Victoria's voice cracked. He chose love. Over and over again, every single day he chose love. And what did I choose? You chose control. You chose power. You chose to turn your grief into a weapon and your daughter into a soldier. Tears streamed down Victoria's face. I spent my whole life trying to earn your approval, trying to be strong enough, cold enough, ruthless enough. And you know what I learned? What? That your approval isn't worth having. Victoria tore the envelope in half. I don't want to be like you. I don't want to die alone in a mansion surrounded by money and power and absolutely no one who gives a damn. Marcus's face went pale. Victoria. I'm not signing your resignation letter. I'm not firing Daniel. And I'm not letting you control me anymore. She threw the torn envelope on the desk. You want a war, fine. We'll have a war. But you're going to lose. Because I have something worth fighting for. And you have nothing. She turned and walked toward the door. Victoria. She stopped, but didn't turn around. If you walk out that door, there's no coming back. I'll destroy you. I'll take everything. No, father. Victoria looked over her shoulder. You'll try. And you'll fail. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of you. She walked out. The board meeting started at 9. The conference room was full. Board members, lawyers, investors, everyone who mattered was there. Victoria sat at the head of the table, her hands folded, her expression calm. Her father sat at the opposite end. His face was stone. Gerald called the meeting to order. We're here today at the request of Marcus Ashford, former CEO and current board member. Marcus, you have the floor. Marcus stood up slowly. He looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. Ladies and gentlemen, I've spent the last 3 months watching my daughter make decisions that put this company at risk. She's prioritized a personal relationship over professional judgment. She's implemented policies that prioritize employee happiness over shareholder returns. She's alienated key investors and created unnecessary controversy. He paused. Today I'm asking the board to do what's necessary. To remove Victoria Ashford as CEO and install me as interim leader until a suitable replacement can be found. Murmurs rippled through the room. Before we proceed, Gerald said, Victoria, do you have a response? Victoria stood up. I do. She walked to the front of the room and pulled up a presentation on the screen. Let's talk about numbers, since that's what we're really here for. She clicked to the first slide. In the 3 months since I implemented new employee policies, revenue is up 8.3%. Guest satisfaction scores have increased by 14%. Employee turnover has dropped by 15%. She clicked to the next slide. Our stock price took a hit during the scandal, down 7% at the lowest point, but it's recovered. In fact, as of market close yesterday, we're up 3% from where we were before any of this started. She looked around the room. My father says I've prioritized feelings over business, but the numbers say otherwise. Happy employees work harder. They provide better service. They stay longer, which reduces training costs. They create loyal customers who come back again and again. She clicked to another slide. This isn't just about me and Daniel. This is about a fundamental question. What kind of company do we want to be? Do we want to be a place where people are afraid to show any humanity? Or do we want to be a place where people can bring their whole selves to work? She turned off the presentation. My father built this company on fear, and for a long time it worked. But the world is changing. The best employees, the ones who will determine whether this company thrives or dies, they don't want to work for dictators. They want to work for leaders who see them as human beings. She looked directly at her father. I am not my father. I will never be my father. And if that's what this board wants, if you want someone who rules through fear and thinks love is weakness, then go ahead and remove me. I won't fight it. She paused. But if you want a leader who will make this company stronger by making it more human, if you want someone who believes that profit and principle don't have to be enemies, then I'm asking for your vote. Not for my sake. For the sake of every employee who deserves better. For the sake of every customer who deserves more. For the future of everything my father built. She sat down. The room was silent. Gerald cleared his throat. We'll take a short recess before the vote. 15 minutes. People started filing out. Victoria stayed seated, her heart pounding. Daniel was right. She'd given it everything she had. Whatever happened now was out of her hands. Howard Chen approached her table. That was one hell of a speech. Thank you. You know, when your father first called me about this, about pushing you out, I was inclined to support him. He's a legend in this industry. His judgment has always been solid. Victoria's stomach sank. And now? Howard looked at her for a long moment. Now I'm not so sure. Legends are great for history books, but the future belongs to people who can change. He walked away. Victoria sat alone, waiting. 15 minutes later, everyone filed back in. Gerald stood at the front of the room. We've had time to consider both arguments. Now it's time to vote. Victoria gripped the edge of the table. All those in favor of removing Victoria Ashford as CEO, please raise your hand. Marcus's hand went up immediately. Then Patricia's. Then 2 more board members. Victoria had always suspected were loyal to her father. 4 hands. All those opposed. Gerald raised his hand. Then Howard Chen. Then one by one the other board members and investor representatives. 8 hands. The motion fails, Gerald announced. Victoria Ashford remains CEO. Victoria exhaled. Her whole body was shaking. She'd won. Again. But this time it felt final. She looked at her father. His face was gray. For the first time in her life, he looked old. Marcus, Gerald said carefully, in light of this vote, the board believes it would be best if you stepped back from active involvement in company affairs. We'll honor your board seat, of course, but don't bother. Marcus stood up. His voice was flat empty. I know when I'm not wanted. He walked toward the door, then he stopped. Victoria. She looked at him. I underestimated you. His voice was barely above a whisper. I thought I made you strong by making you hard, but you found a different kind of strength. He paused. I don't understand it, but I can see it's real. Is that an apology? It's an observation. Marcus's eyes were wet. Victoria had never seen that before. I don't know how to apologize. I never learned. It's not too late to learn. Marcus stared at her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he nodded once and walked out. Victoria watched him go. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even close to forgiveness. But it was something. A crack in the wall, a possibility she'd never believed in. Maybe someday they could build something real. Maybe not. Right now it didn't matter. Right now all that mattered was going home. Victoria left the office at 4:30 for the first time in her career. Her assistant looked shocked. Miss Ashford, you have meetings until... Cancel them. All of them. All of them. She took the elevator down, walked out of Ashford Tower, and hailed a cab. Where to? The driver asked. Victoria gave him the address of Lily's school. 20 minutes later, she stood at the front steps waiting with the other parents. A few of them recognized her and whispered to each other. Victoria didn't care. The school bell rang. Kids came pouring out. Lily spotted her immediately. Victoria. She ran across the playground and threw herself into Victoria's arms. You came to pick me up. I did. But you never pick me up. Daddy always picks me up. Well, today is special. Victoria crouched down to Lily's level. I wanted to surprise you. This is the best surprise ever. Lily grabbed her hand. Can we get ice cream? Absolutely. They walked to the ice cream shop on the corner, the same one Daniel had taken Lily to on that first night. Lily got chocolate chip. Victoria got strawberry. Victoria, Lily said between licks. Yes, sweetheart. Are you going to marry Daddy? Victoria almost choked on her ice cream. What? Sophie's mom says when grown-ups love each other and live together, they get married. You love Daddy, right? Yes, I do. And you live with us, right? Yes. So are you going to marry him? Victoria thought about it. Really thought about it. 6 months ago, the idea would have terrified her. Marriage meant vulnerability. Marriage meant giving someone the power to hurt you. But now, I hope so, she said honestly. Lily beamed. Me too. Then you'd be my real mom. Victoria's throat tightened. Lily, I need you to know something. What? Even if your daddy and I don't get married, even if things don't work out the way we hope, you will always be my family. No matter what happens, I will always love you. Okay. Lily's eyes went wide and serious. You promise? I promise. Okay. Lily nodded solemnly. Then she went back to her ice cream. Can we get a puppy now? Victoria laughed. We'll see. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Victoria and Daniel sat on the balcony of the penthouse. The city spread out below them, glittering in the darkness. It was the same view Victoria had looked at 1,000 times before. But it felt different now. So, Daniel said, you won. I won. How does it feel? Victoria thought about it. Quiet. Quiet. For so long I've been fighting. Fighting my father, fighting the board, fighting myself. And now it's over, and I don't know what to do with the silence. Daniel reached over and took her hand. You fill it with something else. Like what? Like this. He squeezed her fingers. Like us. Like Lily. Like waking up every morning next to someone who loves you. Victoria leaned her head against his shoulder. I talked to Lily today. She asked if we're going to get married. Daniel went very still. She did. And what did you say? I said I hope so. Silence. Then Daniel laughed. Well, I guess that ruins my surprise. Victoria sat up. What? Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Victoria's heart stopped. I was going to wait, Daniel said. I was going to plan something elaborate dinner and flowers and a speech I'd been practicing for weeks. But then you said that and I thought, why wait? Why do we keep waiting for the perfect moment when every moment with you already feels perfect? He opened the box. Inside was a simple diamond ring. Not flashy, not ostentatious, just beautiful. I can't give you what you already have, Daniel said. I can't give you money or power or success. But I can give you this. I will love you every single day for the rest of my life. I will stand beside you when things are hard. I will celebrate with you when things are good. I will be your partner, your friend, your family. He took her hand. Victoria Ashford, will you marry me? Tears were streaming down Victoria's face. She couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. She nodded. Is that a yes? Yes. The word came out broken, barely audible. Yes, yes, yes. Daniel slid the ring onto her finger. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried. I love you, she whispered against his chest. I love you too. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other, watching the city lights below. Victoria thought about everything that had led to this moment. The test, the hospital, the fight with her father, all the walls she'd built, and all the ways Daniel had found through them. She thought about Lily, asleep in her bedroom, dreaming about puppies and ice cream and having a family again. She thought about her mother, who'd spent her whole life hoping for something better. "I wish you could see me now, Mom," she whispered. Daniel pulled back and looked at her. "What?" "Nothing." Victoria smiled through her tears. "Just grateful?" The wedding was small. Victoria had expected to want something big, a society event, a statement proof to the world that she'd won. But when it came time to plan, she realized she didn't want any of that. She wanted Daniel. She wanted Lily. She wanted the people who actually mattered. They got married in the rooftop garden of Ashford Tower. Victoria had built it 6 months earlier, a green space for employees' children, a quiet retreat from the chaos of the city below. It seemed fitting to start their new life there. Lily was the flower girl. She took her job very seriously, scattering petals with intense concentration and checking over her shoulder every few seconds to make sure she was doing it right. Daniel wore a simple gray suit. He'd wanted to rent a tuxedo, but Victoria had talked him out of it. "I don't want you to be uncomfortable," she'd said. "I just want you to be you." Victoria wore a white dress, not a traditional wedding gown, but something simple and elegant. She'd thought about making a statement wearing something that would end up on magazine covers, but that wasn't who she was anymore. She was just a woman marrying the man she loved. The ceremony was short. They'd written their own vows. Daniel went first. "Victoria, 6 months ago, you walked into my life and turned everything upside down. You were cold, intimidating, and honestly, a little terrifying." Laughter rippled through the small crowd. "But underneath all that, I saw someone who was desperate to be loved. Someone who'd been hurt so many times, she'd forgotten what it felt like to trust. Someone who needed to be reminded that she was worthy of love." His voice cracked. "I'm not a poet. I'm not good with words. I can't promise you poetry and grand gestures. But I can promise you this: I will love you every single day. Even when you're difficult. Even when you're stubborn. Even when you work too late and forget to eat dinner." More laughter. "I will love you in the quiet moments and the loud ones. In the victories and the defeats. For the rest of my life, I will love you." Victoria wiped her eyes. Then it was her turn. "Daniel, I spent 34 years building walls. I convinced myself that I didn't need anyone, that love was weakness, that the only way to survive was to stand alone." She took a shaky breath. "And then you looked at me in my office, after I'd just tried to destroy you, and you asked me not to tell your daughter. Not because you were ashamed, but because you loved her so much that protecting her belief in you was more important than your own pride." Tears streamed down her face. "In that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. I saw what real strength looks like. Not the cold, hard, ruthless strength my father taught me, but something deeper. Something that comes from loving someone so much you'd do anything for them." She looked at Lily standing beside her father, clutching her basket of flower petals. "You and Lily saved me. You showed me what I'd been missing. You gave me a family." She turned back to Daniel. "I don't have beautiful words either. But I have this: I will spend the rest of my life earning the love you've given me. I will be the mother Lily deserves. I will be the partner you deserve. And I will never ever take for granted the miracle of being loved by you." Daniel reached out and took her hands. The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Daniel pulled her into his arms and kissed her. The small crowd cheered. Lily jumped up and down, shouting, "Yay, Mommy, Daddy, yay!" Victoria laughed against Daniel's lips. "Mommy," she whispered, "I like the sound of that." "Get used to it," Daniel said. "She's going to say it about 1,000 times a day." "Good." They held hands and walked back down the aisle as husband and wife. The reception was simple. Dinner, dancing, laughter. Victoria had never been to a party that felt so warm, so real, so full of joy. At one point, she slipped away from the crowd and stood by the edge of the rooftop garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Daniel found her there. "Hey, you okay?" "I'm perfect." Victoria leaned against him. "I was just thinking." "About what?" "About a year ago. I was standing in my office looking out at this same city feeling completely empty. I had everything, money, power, success, and none of it meant anything. And now..." Victoria turned to look at him. Behind them, Lily was dancing with Marcus, not Victoria's father, but Marcus the line cook from the hotel, who'd become like an uncle to her. "Now I have something worth more than all of it." Daniel put his arm around her. "You know, when you first walked into my life, I thought you were going to destroy me. I almost did." "Yeah," he smiled. "But instead you saved me. I think we saved each other." They stood there watching the sunset, listening to the laughter behind them. "Victoria." Lily came running over, slightly out of breath from dancing. "Yes, sweetheart. Marcus said I should ask you about the puppy again because you're in a good mood." Victoria laughed. "Did he?" "Uh-huh. He said weddings make people say yes to everything." Daniel tried to keep a straight face and failed completely. Victoria crouched down to Lily's level. "You know what, Marcus might be right." Lily's eyes went wide. "Really?" "Really. But we have to talk about responsibility. A puppy is a lot of work. I'll feed it every day and walk it and clean up its poop. That's the spirit." Lily threw her arms around Victoria's neck. "Thank you, Mommy. You're the best mommy ever." Victoria held her tight, tears pricking her eyes. "Mommy," she would never get tired of hearing that word. Daniel knelt down beside them. "Okay, family, let's get back to the party. I think there's cake." "Cake!" Lily shouted, already running back toward the crowd. Daniel stood and offered Victoria his hand. "Ready." Victoria took it and stood up. She looked at the city below, at the party behind them, at the man beside her. A year ago, she'd had everything and nothing. Now she had what mattered. "Ready," she said. They walked back to the party together. 1 year later, Victoria stood in the same rooftop garden watching Lily chase a golden retriever puppy named Biscuit around the flower beds. Daniel was beside her, his arm around her waist. "You're quiet," he said. "Just thinking. About how different everything is." Victoria leaned her head against his shoulder. "A year ago, I was sitting in a board meeting, trying to prove I was strong enough to deserve my father's company. Now I'm standing in a garden I built watching our daughter play with a dog married to a man who loves me." "Our daughter," Daniel repeated. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." The adoption had been finalized 3 months ago. Victoria was officially Lily's mother, not just in her heart, but on paper too. It was the proudest moment of her life. "Any regrets?" Daniel asked. Victoria thought about it, really thought about it. She thought about her father who'd moved to Palm Beach and rarely called anymore. The last time they'd spoken, he'd asked about Lily. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. She thought about the company which was thriving under her leadership. Revenue was up. Employee satisfaction was at record highs. They'd been named one of the best places to work in the hospitality industry. She thought about the penthouse, which was no longer spotless and empty. Lily's drawings covered the walls. Biscuit's toys were scattered across the floor. It smelled like cookies and dog fur and life. "Not one," she said. Lily ran over out of breath, Biscuit yapping at her heels. "Mommy." Daddy Biscuit learned a new trick, watch. She held up a treat. "Sit, Biscuit." The puppy sat, tail wagging furiously. "Good boy." Lily gave him the treat. "See, I trained him." "That's amazing, sweetheart," Victoria said. "You're such a good puppy, Mom." "I know," Lily beamed. "Can we get another puppy?" "Nice try," Daniel said. One is enough. But Biscuit gets lonely. Biscuit has you. That's plenty of company. Lily huffed dramatically, but didn't push further. She'd learned that Daddy's no usually stuck, but Mommy could sometimes be convinced. Victoria smiled. Her daughter was already a brilliant negotiator. The sun was setting. The city glowed gold beneath them. "We should head inside," Daniel said. "Dinner's almost ready." "5 more minutes," Victoria said. "You always say that." "Because there's never enough time." Daniel pulled her closer. "There's plenty of time. We have the rest of our lives." Victoria looked at him. At the man who'd changed everything. Who'd seen through her walls and loved her anyway. Who'd given her a family when she didn't know she needed one. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." Lily ran back over Biscuit at her heels. She squeezed between them one hand, grabbing Daniel's one hand, grabbing Victoria's. "Group hug." They pulled together, the three of them, and one very excited puppy. Victoria held them tight and looked out at the city. She thought about the woman she used to be. Cold, alone, convinced that love was weakness. She thought about the woman she was now. A wife, a mother. Someone who knew that love wasn't weakness at all. Love was the only thing that made any of it worthwhile. Her father had spent his whole life building an empire. He'd sacrificed everything: his marriage, his daughter, his humanity for money and power and control. And in the end, he'd ended up alone. Victoria had almost followed the same path. She'd almost lost herself to the same cold, empty pursuit of success. But then a man had walked into her office, refused to beg for his job, and asked her not to tell his daughter he'd failed. And everything had changed. "Mommy." Lily looked up at her. "Why are you crying?" Victoria wiped her eyes. "I'm not crying, sweetheart. I'm just happy." Happy tears. The happiest. Lily nodded seriously. "Daddy cries happy tears sometimes too, usually when I give him drawings." Daniel laughed. "That's true. Your drawings are very emotional." "Because I put love in them," Lily said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Victoria knelt down and hugged her daughter. "You put love in everything you do, baby. That's what makes you so special." "You too, Mommy. You put love in everything too." Victoria's heart was so full she thought it might burst. She stood up, took Daniel's hand, took Lily's hand, and started walking toward the elevator. Behind them, the sun finished setting. The city lights flickered on. The rooftop garden settled into peaceful darkness. "Mommy?" Lily asked as they waited for the elevator. "Yes, sweetheart." "Is this going to be forever? You and Daddy and me and Biscuit?" Victoria looked at Daniel. He looked at her. "Yes, baby," Victoria said. "This is forever." The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside, mother, father, daughter, dog. The doors closed. And Victoria Ashford, the woman who'd spent her whole life afraid to love, finally understood the truth her father had never learned. Real strength isn't about surviving alone. Real strength is having something worth surviving for. And she had found it.